Team Week has put out a statement, and it was in reference to Holly Holm's fight with Vieira. And Team Week was basically, I'm going to paraphrase for you guys, but they basically put out a statement and they just talked about the importance of the judges to know what it is that they're looking for, to know what the criteria, and objectively interpret that criteria correctly to get to the accurate result. And this topic's not a new one, but it's never going to go away. When people are judging people, it isn't fair. And I think I understand that on a different level because my father was a cowboy. He came to the rodeo system, and he just always told me that ever since I was a little kid. Anytime you're in a sport where it's people judging other people, it's not going to be fair. Okay. Now, we all know that, but I heard it my whole life, so maybe it's a little bit different with me. When I look at the Holly Holm fight specifically, it's not about what Daniel Cormier saw, which was Holly Holm winning. It's not about what I saw, which was Holly Holm winning. And it's not about what the masses saw of you guys, which was Holly Holm winning. It comes down to these three judges, but the interesting part there is it was a split decision. It's not that the judges disagreed with Daniel Cormier or that the judges disagreed with Coach Wink or you guys or me. It was that the judges disagreed with the judges. That's your entire story. How did one judge see the same thing and see that Vieira won? How did two other judges see the same thing and see that Holly won? I realize I said that flip-flop. But that's really the bigger question. There is discussions of getting the judges and the announcers together, getting the Daniel Cormiers into a room with the fellow judges. I couldn't possibly care less if that happens. If that gets put on my schedule, I will show up. I will be perfectly pleasant. I will sit there and listen. I'll just share with you guys, before that mistake is made, what the judges are told to look for is told to them by the executive director, in this case of Nevada. So if the announcers are supposed to get smartened with that same information, the announcers would have to be told that by the executive director, in this case of Nevada. It can't be the judges are told something and then the judges come and tell the announcers. If the judges got it wrong to start with, if that's the case, and now everybody's wrong. I'm not suggesting for you, by the way, that the judges are. I'm saying if. It's why you don't do that. It's why you would never make that mistake. You both have the advantage of getting your information from the same source. There is no court, there is no objective body in the world that would remove that aspect. It is called hearsay. Now, moreover, you can be wrong. Daniel has come out and apologized publicly and proclaimed that he was wrong, that the judges saw it another way. And I would push back and go, well, not so fast, Daniel. You did see it the same way as another licensed judge. Was this such a travesty and such a disaster that it needs review? Not for me. This isn't even really one that I would like to discuss a whole lot further. I mean, I remember Conor McGregor fighting Floyd Mayweather and Floyd Mayweather giving the first round away, not even trying to win it, and all three crooked judges of Nevada gave the round to Floyd. There was 10 seconds left when Floyd took a fist and moved it in a forward direction towards Conor McGregor. And the judges gave the round to Floyd. I mean, but just by example, that's one that should be reviewed. There are some matches that are just absolutely ridiculous. And then you bring in, I call it CompuBox. What do we call it in MMA? CompuBox is actually a business. What do we call it in MMA? Strike count? We bring in the strike count for reasons that I don't understand. First off, it is not interesting. Nobody cares. There has never been a video in the history of YouTube which lets absolutely anybody make a video about absolutely anything that's had to do with the strike count. It is a very uninteresting detail, but it's included in our sport and we like to throw it up on the screen. When we throw it up on the screen as a talking point, which in the 15 years that it's been, nobody's ever talked about, but when we do that, it's still very misleading to our audience. You could have a fight that went to a decision, where 300 effective strikes were landed by the red corner, and 81 effective strikes were landed by the blue, and the blue wins, without question. How could it be 300 to 81, and you win because you're in a 10-9 must system? It has nothing to do with the fight. It's an uninteresting piece of data, for one. That it's uninteresting, but secondly, it's wildly misleading. If they wanted to do the fight stat, and they wanted to do it in a helpful way, you would just break it down round by round. You would just say, in the first round, this many effective strikes versus this many effective strikes. That's where you would start. And then you would say to the second round, and you would start to show the difference. Because 300 through a contest versus 89 through a contest is going to lead you to believe that 300 won and take for advantage that you don't understand a 10-9 must system. Totally relevant. I was there the night that Johnny Hendricks beat up Georges St-Pierre. I watched Georges St-Pierre win 3 rounds and lose 2. And even though he didn't beat up Johnny, he won. And that's how the judges had it. They were criticized, but they had it right. I could give you many different examples. I'll use St-Pierre again versus BJ Penn. I was there the night BJ Penn beat up Georges St-Pierre, but I was also watched that BJ did that all inside of the first round, the round of which he won. He then barely, in very close fashion, lost the next 2, and the decision went to Georges St-Pierre. That was right. So the audience is greatly misled from the beginning. It's not on purpose, but if you throw up a fight stat and you think that favors Holly, which it did, that does not then qualify as evidence to the judges got it wrong. The fight stat over the duration of the 25-minute contest is wildly misleading. It's not interesting. It shouldn't be there because it's not interesting. I can't quit saying that. That's a dull stat. But if that's going to be part of our sport, now it does mislead the audience, which leads the audience to think that the judges did a poor job, misunderstanding what a 10-9 is. So if we're going to combine these two things, we're going to combine our opinion with the judges and that of a fight stat. We have to break the fight stat down into what the judges are supposed to look at, which is per round. It's a very simple idea. But getting the announcers and getting the judges to all be chump for what? Say what you saw. And whether you do that by marking it on a pencil quietly or whether you do that into a microphone for everybody to hear, the role is the same. Say what you saw. We don't all have to see the same thing, and we don't all have to agree. And every time a decision doesn't go your way, to turn to numbers that you know are misleading, a little bit foolish.